Okay, the 2001-2002 season, that's right. People are probably saying, well, I'm going to bed. Shannon's not doing a history video tonight. Haha. Ye of little faith. Just been a bit of a full day, so I didn't really have a chance to get this done, as in filming. I had this ready to go this morning. The 2001-2002 season is a big one for Detroit, and if you're a Detroit fan, you like this season very much. They win the Central at 51, 17, 10, and 4. They are the class of the West, the class of the league. St. Louis finishes second, 43, 27, 8, and 4. Again, St. Louis, excellent regular season, and then in the postseason, we'll get to it. Chicago, 41, 27, 13, and 1. Nashville, outside the playoffs, obviously at 28, 41, 13, and 0. Columbus, 22, 47, 8, and 5. So, Columbus getting worse, Nashville not making headway yet. Pacific Division. San Jose wins it, 44, 27, 10, and 3. Phoenix, 40, 27, 9, and 6. LA, 40, 27, 11, and 4. Dallas, well, 36, 28, 13, and 5. Looks fine and well and good. However, they do miss the playoffs. And Anaheim, 29, 42, 8, and 3. At this stage of the game, there's a lot of questions about whether or not Anaheim's ever going to win. There's question marks about Korea, and there's some trades that get made as well to try to fix what's wrong with Anaheim. The Northwest Division is won by Colorado, 45, 28, 8, and 1. Vancouver surprisingly second at 42, 37, and 3. And the Oilers, 38, 28, 12, and 4. Calgary, 32, 20, 35, 12, and 3. And Minnesota bringing up the rear at 26, 35, 12, and 9. Let's look to the East. Boston wins their division, which surprised me tremendously that year. 43, 24, 6, and 9. Toronto, 43, 25, 10, and 4. So Toronto still performing very well. Ottawa, 39, 27, 9, and 7. Montreal, they're the last team to get into the playoffs at 36, 31, 12, and 3. And missing, Buffalo, 35, 35, 11, and 1. So, very solid division there, and good record for the Northeast. And I am working on a Strength of Divisions video, which I think is going to end up having to be a bit of a series because it's going to go back 50 years. It's going to be fun. Atlantic Division is won by Philly at 42, 27, 10, and 3, followed by the Islanders, 42, 28, 8, and 4. New Jersey, 41, 28, 9, and 4. And there's the Rangers out of the playoffs at 36, 38, 4, and 4. Pittsburgh, 28, 41, 8, and 5. Brings up the rear right there. The Southeast Division is won by Carolina at 35, 26, 12, and 3. Followed by Washington, who missed the playoffs at 36, 33, 11, and 2. So this is one of those years where one team in the Southeast makes the playoffs. Tampa, 27, 40, 11, and 4 is their record. Florida, 22, 44, 10, and 6. And Atlanta, bringing up the rear, 19, 47, 11, and 5. Your trophy winners. The Hart Trophy goes to Jose Theodore, who had an amazing season for the 8th seed Montreal Canadiens that year. Without Theodore, they don't make the playoffs. Danny Heatley is the Calder. He's an all-star, so he's a Calder winner. The Norris Trophy goes to Nick Lidstrom, again. The Vezina goes to Jose Theodore, of course. The Lady Byng goes to Ron Francis. The Selke goes to Mike Pekka. The Masterton goes to Saku Koivu. The Adams Award, Coach of the Year, goes to Bob Francis of the Phoenix Coyotes. And the Clancy goes to Ron Francis. The Jennings Award goes to Patrick Waugh. The Art Ross goes to Jerome McGinley, who also wins the Rocket Richard Trophy that year. And the Conn Smythe goes to Nick Lidstrom of these guys. Your number one draft pick, Columbus owns that. It's Rick Nash. 1,060 games played, 437 goals, 368 assists, 805 points. And at this point, his career's up in the air. He did not sign anywhere this year because he wanted to take a year off. At this stage, that could be the end of his career. With these numbers, not a Hall of Famer, but pretty solid career nonetheless. Your first and second team All-Stars. First team down the middle, Sakic. On the wings, Jerome McGinley and Marcus Naslund, who had this surprise run that all of a sudden he was on the best line in hockey. Lidstrom and Chelios on the blue line and Patrick Waugh in net. Second team All-Stars, Matt Sundin down the middle, Bill Guerin and Brendan Shanahan on the wings, Rob Blake and Sergei Gonchar on the blue line, and Jose Theodore, second-line goalie. So it's strange that he's the second-team goaltender, and yet he had the Vezina and the Hart. But Patrick Waugh, right? June 23rd, 2001. Zdeno Chara, Bill McCult, and a number 1 draft pick, which became Jason Spezza, goes to Ottawa for Alexei Yashin. Good old Milbury, right? Right? Yeah. June 23rd, 2001, Roman Turks traded to Calgary for Freddie Brathwaite and prospects. Calgary wins that trade going away. July 11th, 2001, Jaromir Jagr's traded to Washington for Chris Beach, Michael Civic, and stuff. It's not a great return for Jaromir Jagr. Now, what's weird is Washington Capital fans aren't entirely happy with what they get out of Jagr while he's a Capital. They are not very happy with him at all. And it's a bad fit. And yet Pittsburgh didn't get anything back for him. So when we talk about the Karlsson deal that just went down with San Jose, it's not unusual to see a superstar traded and not enough come back. August 20th, 2001 is another example of that. Pavel Brendel, Jan Hlavac, Kim Johnson, and a third-round draft pick are traded to Philly for Eric Lindros. But at this point, Lindros is damaged goods going to the New York Rangers, so I can understand them not getting back a tremendous return. And Pavel Brendel, I tell you, if Bobby Clark thought Lindros was lazy, he must have just loved Pavel Brendel. October 24th, 2001, Glenn Murray and Joseph Stumple are traded to Boston for Jason Allison and a pick. And that's a big part of the reason why Boston gets up there. This is when Glenn Murray was known as Little Cam Neely. And I just thought he was amazing. He was my favorite player at that point in time. And Stumple played pretty well for Boston as well. Very decent career for Joseph Stumple. November 10th of 2001, Trevor Linden's traded back to Vancouver for a 2002 first and a 2003 third to Washington. Neither of those draft picks amounted to anything, and Linden really did. It's Boyd Gordon that was the first round draft pick, if anybody's wondering. So every video, it seems like I'm doing with the history, Linden gets traded, and now he's traded back to Vancouver. All is well and good. January 7th, 2002, Dan Boyle is traded to Tampa Bay for a 5th-round draft pick going back to Florida. Didn't really get full value on that one, although I don't think anybody knew what Dan Boyle was necessarily going to do after that. March 18th of 2002, Philip Novak, Igor Ulanov, and a 2002 first, second, and third, 2002 first and second, and a 2003 4th-round draft pick are traded to Florida for Pavel Bure and a 2002 second. So again, Bure's going to the Rangers. What the Rangers gave up to get Bure isn't really anything more substantial than what Washington gave up to get Jagr, or what the Rangers gave up to get Lindros. So you get Lindros, you get Bure. That's right. The Rangers are convinced the best way to get back to the Stanley Cup, keep throwing money at it. Just, there's no time for a rebuild. There's no time, no patience. Don't have patience. Don't do a rebuild. Just keep throwing money at it. And they keep missing the playoffs. March 19th of 2002, Jamie Langenbrunner and Joe Nieuwendyk, two of the greatest names in hockey history, are traded to New Jersey for Jason Arnott, Randy McKay, and a 2002 first. And I'm going to come right out and say it. I like this trade for both teams. Love Jamie Langenbrunner, one of my favorite players. Was very glad to see him do well in New Jersey as well, and finally start getting the recognition for being as good as I knew he was. And Nieuwendyk wasn't quite finished yet when he went to New Jersey. March 19th also for 2002, Adam Oates is traded to Philly for Maxime Ouellette, who's a goaltender, a 2002 first, second, and third. None of those draft picks ended up panning out. So they got 4 assets for Adam Oates, and really none of them cost Philly very much at all. But Oates at this point is a little past his prime. December 26th of 2001, Patrick Waugh is the first goalie to reach 500 wins in his career. I think Patrick Waugh would have just kept playing if he knew that Marty Brodeur was going to catch his records. Waugh was a very proud man. Although if that had happened, Brodeur wouldn't have retired when he did either. He would have just kept coming back. The desire to be the best and to be number one is part of what makes these guys great. That's part of what makes players great. That's why when people say, oh, yeah, he was the best, but he had such an ego, though. That's part of how you get there. Now, in the playoffs that year, Boston plays Montreal, and you guys know what I say about that, right? It's a bad matchup for Boston. That's true this time, as the 8th seed Montreal Canadiens behind Jose Theodore knock out the number 1 seeded Bruins in 6. And I'm not happy about it that year, or even now looking back at it. The number 7 seed Philly takes out the number 2 seed, or number 7 seed Ottawa takes out number 2 seed Philly in 5 games. So Ottawa finally doing something in the playoffs. That's because Yashin's gone. That's what Senators fans say anyways. Carolina takes out New Jersey in 6. So the number 3 seed survives. And that's key because that means they have home ice for the rest of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. The number 4 and 5 matchup, number 4 Toronto takes out number 5 New York Islanders. So again, Yashin out in the first round. There you go. 7-game series there. In the Western Conference, Vancouver wins the first 2 games in Detroit. And I felt pretty good. I thought, we're going to do it. And then in Game 3, Nick Lidstrom slaps a shot from center. And Cloutier missed it. And there was no turning back from that. Cloutier, had they held on and won that game, I think his career reputation as being a goalie who couldn't win in the playoffs probably wouldn't have been as strong. The fact that they just blew it from there. They lost 4 in a row. If they had won that game, won Game 3 at home, they win the series. I don't see Detroit coming back and winning 4 in a row against Vancouver. Although Vancouver is an 8th seed, they're an inexperienced team, and they're fragile. The one thing about those Vancouver Canucks, as fun as they were to watch, it was a fragile team. You would watch them have a lead, and then they'd allow a goal, and you go, oh, crap, it's happening, isn't it? And then 10 minutes later in the game, you'd be like, and we're down. Colorado, they survive a scare against the LA Kings. The Kings who were tough the year before. The number 2 seed Colorado Avalanche win in 7. The number 3 seed San Jose Sharks knock out the Phoenix Coyotes in 5. And the number 4 seed St. Louis Blues knock out the number 5 seed Chicago in 5. Meaning, despite scares, all 4 top seeds in the West move on. In the East, it's a little different. Carolina knocks out Montreal in the second round. So the number 8 seed goes out in 6 there and plays 12 games in the playoffs altogether. Very solid performance for them. Toronto meets Ottawa, which means it's a bad matchup for Ottawa, meaning Ottawa loses in 7. Toronto with home ice in Game 7. Ottawa unable to close out the series when they had the chance, and it came back and bit them. Detroit in the West knocks out the number 4 seed St. Louis Blues to keep everything in line. And despite a scare, Colorado takes out San Jose in 7 to move on to the conference championship. In the conference finals, Carolina, the number 3 seed, takes down the number 4 seed Toronto in 6. And the number 1 seed Detroit Red Wings take out the number 2 seed Colorado in 7. The Stanley Cup final that year, it's upsetting. Carolina beats Detroit at home 3-2. And I'm like, okay, I'm fully behind Carolina now. Because I've been pulling for Carolina pretty much the whole way along. They took out New Jersey, they took out Montreal, they took out Toronto. And now I'm cheering for them against Detroit. I'm like, all right, the Hurricanes, this is going to happen. This is going to be great. Because after Game 1, I'm like, all right, they just got to hold serve at home, right? Detroit wins Game 2 3-1. Game 3 goes to triple overtime. What is it with Detroit and big overtime games in the playoffs, big momentum swings, and they go in their favor? They win it 3-2. Now, historically, if you look back in all of my history videos going back to Detroit in the 1940s and 50s and whatnot, their record in overtimes and big key games isn't great. So this team is kind of breaking a Detroit tradition here. Detroit wins in Carolina in Game 4 3-0, and it's done. Carolina is done. Game 5, Detroit wins that one 3-1, and it's over. The Cinderella team is out in 5. Your goals leader in the playoffs is Brett Hull, who's now with Detroit. So a storyline with Detroit is funny. Brett Hull won with Dallas. Now he's won with Detroit. And there had been a storyline with Brett Hull when he was in St. Louis that he couldn't win in the playoffs. You can't win with Brett Hull. After this series, there was an article that was in, I want to say it was in the Hockey News Annual, that said, can you win without Brett Hull? So the whole thing changed to, this guy now is your key performer in the playoffs. He's a clutch guy. The storyline's completely flipped. Your assist leader in the playoffs is actually Peter Forsberg with 18, and he's out here. So he doesn't even play in the finals because Colorado's obviously not there. Your points leaders, also Peter Forsberg with 27. Your wins leader, Dominik Hasek with 16. Oh yeah, Dominator finally gets the Stanley Cup. Plays a major role in this, as does Kluche's allowance of a goal from center ice. And your second place is Arturs Urbe with 10 wins. Also worthy of note, the other 3 wins for Carolina that year, Kevin Weeks, goalie of the future. So, good job by Kevin Weeks. And it's one of those underrated things when your starter, for whatever reason, isn't playing, or you go through these periods during the playoffs where you end up relying on another goalie, and he ekes out some wins. It's nice to see. So Carolina just falls short. They will, of course, be victorious later. A few videos from now, actually. But Detroit's your winner. And the Detroit Red Wings, one heck of a team. This is not officially a dynasty, and yet, yeah, it's a dynasty. Detroit's a winner, and they will be winners again. But for this season, they are definitely the best team, and they survived that big scare in the first round, and they survive another war with Colorado in the conference finals before facing a team that they broke in Game 3 in triple overtime in the finals. There you go. Let me know in the comments section below any thoughts you may have. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And your 01-02 Stanley Cup goes to Detroit. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.